If you'll recall, in our last lesson, we learned to use completing the square, and I told you that it would help us later on in actually finding the standard equation of a circle, or where we could locate the center and the radius. Here we have the standard form of a circle. In this example, I'm showing you the general equation of a circle. Let's begin. We're going to first group our variables. So I have x squared minus 6x. And then I have plus y squared minus 14y equals 23. So all we did was rearrange the order of the variables. I'm going to go ahead and separate it. What makes this a little more difficult is that before we dealt with one variable. Now we're dealing with two variables at one time. So let's split this up. Let's go ahead with x squared minus 6x. And remember what we did before when we added a box? Let's go ahead and add that box right there. So we want to know what we can do to make that a perfect square trinomial. Remember over here now we're going to go ahead and do y squared minus 14y, and again I'm going to add a box for that value, and then we have equals 23 back on the other side. All right, remember the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and identify the b term in each one of these parentheses. We're going to do completing the square twice. That's my b term there. Oops, we need to add the x here. That's my b term right here. All right, remember the next step is to go ahead and take that b term, negative 6, divide it by 2, and square it, for we are completing the square. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is going to give us positive 9. Remember the key numbers here are negative 3 and positive 9. So we're going to go ahead and add positive 9 to our box. And remember to add positive 9 to the other side of the equation as well to maintain the equality. Let's move over to the y parentheses now. We're going to go ahead and take negative 14 and divide it by 2. And we're going to square it, which is going to give us negative 7 squared, which will give us 49. So we will now also add 49 to the other side of the equation. All right, so let's clean this up a little bit. Remember, we want to show this in factored form. So this is going to be the factor of x squared is x. The factor of 9 that we squared was negative 3. So this is going to be x minus 3 squared. Now we're going to plus over here the factor for y squared. The square of y is going to be y. And then we're going to go ahead. Remember what we did? We did negative 7. So it's minus 7 squared. And now when we add up the other side, we get 81. Now, does this not look like this over here? We have x minus 3 squared plus y minus 7 parentheses squared equals 81. So what would the center of our circle be? Remember that this is minus a positive 3. So therefore, the h value is actually positive 3. And the k value here is actually positive 7. And this is the radius squared. So in order to find the radius, we would have to take the square root of 81, which would give us 9. Now we can take the general form, convert it to the standard form, and now we are able to graph our circle with a center of 3, 7 and a radius of 9. Now you try it. Pause the video and try this on your own, then check back with me for the answer. Okay, remember our first step is to greet our like variables. So we are going to go ahead and take x squared plus 10x over here plus y squared plus 20y equals negative 89. That is our first step. Now remember what our second step is. Let's separate these so that we can complete the square. We have x squared plus 10x, and we're going to add our box for our first parentheses, plus y squared plus 20y, and we're going to add our second box, equals negative 89. Okay, now remember what our next step was. Let's circle the b term, and we will take 10, divide it by 2, and square it. That will give us 5 squared, which equals 25. Two important things here are the 5 in the parentheses and the 25. So we add 25 to both sides, which means we will add 25 over here as well. Let's go to the y side. What do we have? We have 20. We take 20, we divide it by 2, and we square it. So that's going to give us 10 squared. And 10 squared is going to equal 100. So two things important here are the 10 and the 100. So we will add 100 to both sides. So we will add 100 over here as well. When we add this up, we wind up with 36. Let's clean up the left side. Remember, we want to show it in factored form. So we will take the factor of x squared, which is x. And what did we do? We did a positive 5, which is the square root of 25. Then we squared it, plus the square root of y squared, which is y, plus the square root of 100, which was 10. And we square it. And that brings us to the general equation of, the standard equation of a circle, which would be x plus 5 squared plus y plus 10 squared equals 36. Remember that this is minus in here, so that therefore this was a minus 5. So what does h equal? H actually equals negative 5. K equals negative 10, and our radius is equal to the square root of 36, which equals 6. Okay, so you might be ready now to try a question similar to something that might be found on the EOC, which we have in our EOC warm-ups. Remember to read the question very carefully, underline the important information, and refer to the examples that you did in order to solve the problem. All right, so this should be what you have on your paper so far. But remember, our final goal is to solve for B. Okay, so let's recall that this is what the standard equation of a circle looks like. And what's on the right of the equation here should be our r squared. They've told us that the radius is equal to 7 units. So 7 squared would give us 49. Therefore, this should equal 49. Let's solve for B. B plus 5 equals 49. We will subtract 5 from both sides, and we will get that B is equal to 44. If that is your answer, good job. So now let's place the answer in the box. Just kidding. That's what you would do if you wanted to get the answer wrong. The answer is 44. Hope you were listening.